The City of Riverbank Regular City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board meeting is now in session. Today is December 12th, 2017. The time is 6 p.m. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Could we pray? Heavenly Father Jesus, we come to you tonight knowing that you are the great creator, and that Heavenly Father Jesus, you created each one of us. Tonight we come to you and we ask that you bestow upon this council the wisdom to make the decisions that they make for the betterment of the city of Riverbank and each individual that lives in it. We ask you, Heavenly Father Jesus, to be with each one of us in this time of the year, Heavenly Father Jesus, that we celebrate your birthday. And Heavenly Father Jesus, we just ask that you provide health and wisdom to each one of us. And Heavenly Father, bless this great community that you've given us. Bless every city worker that we have and each person, Heavenly Father, that lives within the city limits of Riverbank. We ask you to pour out your blessings on the great United States of America. Give them strength and wisdom. And be with our servicemen and women wherever they are, Heavenly Father. Just give them an extra blessing tonight as we look to you, Heavenly Father, for guidance and for leadership. And we know, Heavenly Father Jesus, when it comes from you, that it has to be correct. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Here?
Here. Here.
Here. There will be no changes to the agenda tonight. Any council or authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item is to be considered is to declare the conflict at this time. Seeing none, we're going to move forward to public comments. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Are there any public comments tonight? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent calendar, consisting of item 3A, waive readings. Item 3B, approval of November 14th, 2017 City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority minutes. Item 3B1, approval of November 28th, 2017 City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority minutes. Item 3C, acceptance of the Slurry Seal Project 2017 conducted by American Pavement Systems, Inc., and authorization to file a notice of completion. Are there any comments on any of the consent calendars? Anyone wishing to pull or to discuss one? Seeing none, I bring it to the council for action.
I make a motion that we accept the consent calendar.
We have a motion to approve in a second.
Council Authority Member Fossey,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Jones-Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes. Item 4.1, second reading by title only and adoption of proposed ordinance number 2017-011, approving the rezoning of 2.4 acres located at 2644 Morale Road, APN 075-030-001 to multiple family residential R3 zone.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Our Planning and Building Manager, Donna Kenny, will be handling the staff report this evening.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. As the city manager mentioned, this is the rezone and a general plan amendment to upzone the property from R1, single-family residential, to R3. And this is the second reading. We are moving forward on this project with the consent of the property owner and to keep our housing element and our general plan element consistent. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none? Oh. Do I have to open a public comment? Okay. I open for public comment. Seeing no public comment, I close public comment, bring it back to the council for a recommendation and/or consideration.
I make a motion that we approve item 4.1.
I second it.
We have a motion to approve item 4.1 and a second.
Council members Fosse, Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
No.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Item 5.1, the first reading by title only and introduction of a proposed ordinance approving development agreement number 01-2017 by and between the City of Riverbank and PACAFI Cooperative, Inc., a California cooperative corporation doing business as Flavors for a commercial cannabis dispensary.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, Donna Kenny, our planning and building manager, will be handling the staff report for this evening.
Good evening again, Council. As was mentioned, this is a development agreement and conditional use permit for Flavors. The development agreement, per our municipal code, was required to be heard by the Planning Commission in public hearing, and the conditional use permit was approved by the Planning Commission at their November 21st meeting by a vote of 3-1. There will be no exterior changes to the building. Parking required is 17 spaces, and they exceed that. Here's an aerial of the project. As you can see, there is one point of egress from Oakdale Road and 2 points of egress from Patterson Road or Highway 108. This is a site plan. The applicants are not making any changes to the exterior of the building or the site itself. Therefore, architectural and site plan review is not required for this project, just the DA and the CUP. They have added parking in front of the existing bays, but those bay doors will not be functional. They will be creating walls, doing a tenant improvement inside, and not be utilizing those doors. Here is a floor plan. The right side of your drawing there is where the dispensary will be located. As you can see, there are security offices, storage, and other offices besides the main entranceway and the waiting area. The 2 areas that you see with the X's across them, the left side, and then the far left is showing the floor plan of the upstairs, and both those will be retained by the property owner for his use. These are the elevations. As I mentioned, they will not be changing the elevations at this time. Since the CUP was approved by the Planning Commission, I'm going to go right to the DA. The major elements is that the term is 3 years. It will serve both medicinal and of January 1st, 2018, recreational. There will be a public benefit paid towards the infrastructure services and neighborhood burdens that this project is expected to have. So the greater of $10,000 or the gross receipts at 0 to 6 months. It increases to $15,000 for the 7 to 12 months. And then to the end of the term, the last 2 years, it's $18,000 a month or 5% of the gross receipts, whichever is greater. To approve a DA, it must be consistent with the general plan. It must not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the city. It should not affect orderly development. In this case, it is a developed site with development surrounding it. It needs to be consistent with the government code that regulates development agreements, and it must contain a legal description of the property, which it does. Going back to the conditional use permit, some of the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission approved involved the use of live scans for the not only the business owners and partners, but the employees of the site. It regulates the hours of construction that the tenant improvements can be done. It also regulates the exterior lighting conditions. There's a hold harmless agreement in it. And also, there will be no loitering signs and a security guard to monitor the traffic outside and to monitor the door traffic, the foot traffic into the building. During the Planning Commission meeting, our attorneys added condition number 14, which states the project and applicant shall strictly comply with all administrative guidelines that we have now and any that we may create in the future, or as may be changed from time to time. This is consistent with the general plan. Our city should be safe and healthy for all residents. By regulating cannabis, we feel that we can put some pressure on the black market and keep the quality of the product safe for our citizens. The proposed project does qualify for a catechol exemption because the facility is not expanding and it does not have any significant effect on the environment. And we do recommend that the project is consistent with the code, it's exempt from CEQA, and it's consistent with our general plan. And I would also like to mention that this is about the 9th public hearing that we have had on cannabis, starting in February of 2014, where we first addressed a smoking ban on cannabis in the downtown area. Then we had workshops concerning personal grows, personal use, a workshop on cultivation and dispensaries, another workshop on the laboratory, the testing facilities. Then we had the first and second reading of our ordinance that became law in, it was adopted in August 22nd of this year and became law in September on the 22nd. And then on November 21st, this item came before the Planning Commission. So it has had substantial public hearings involved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the project applicants are here as well in case you have specific questions for them or for their project. Thank you.
Thank you. For the council, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
I'd like to make a statement. First off, I'd like to welcome everyone here. We've been doing these workshops and trying to get public input to some of the cannabis issues, some of the problems that are going to be foreseen, and some of the resolutions. As you know, Prop 64 was passed last November. So for 13 months, we've been struggling. What do we do? As you heard, that we've held numerous workshops, study groups, asking for input, and we received very little, but we did do the studying. We visited commercial grows in LA. We visited dispensaries throughout California. I was in Washington State this last weekend and saw some of the areas that they have dispensaries. Some are in strip malls right behind residential, and they seem to have no problems. Are we going to experience the same thing? No. I've heard over the last 10 days a lot of arguments which should have been used in the opposition of Proposition 64. You know, it is people going to drive under the influence. They do now. People are going to give it to their kids, but the kids get it anyway. What do we have to do? We have to start looking at how do we build a responsible use of this product, which unfortunately is now legal. We held workshops on personal cultivation. We held workshops and study groups on commercial cultivation, warehousing, and manufacturing, and any of the associate land uses within Riverbank. Retail dispensary and lab testing, all the workshops, and then study groups around there. We looked at cannabis delivery. In June 27th of this year, Governor Brown even made it more complex. He goes, we're not going to separate between medical marijuana and adult use. It's now under one roof. So it's now accepted. At first, we didn't want it. Let's hide our head in the sand and do absolutely nothing. Okay, so we went to Stanislaus County because they wanted to do a tax sharing agreement. The tax sharing agreement is there's $500,000. So if we made $1 million in taxes in the city of Riverbank, they're going to share it with everyone. So we will get $50,000 of that $1 million. I don't think that's a fair trade. So we still didn't want it. This whole council was dead set against it. But we have to manage it. We have to manage this problem. So we kept looking at, well, how do we do it? Well, it's illegal in Stanislaus County to have dispensaries. How many do you think we have? As of January this year, we had 24 operating in public view. On Pentecost, there's 3. On Charity Lane, there's 2. Fully illegal, but are operational. So why are we looking at this today? We're looking at it because the operator will know if there's an illegal dispensary, and we can do something about it. But if we don't know if there's an illegal dispensary right down the street from you in a garage or something, we can't do anything if we don't know. Neighbors could tell us, but more than likely would get more direct response from someone who runs a dispensary. It's legal. It is a retail business in California, unfortunately. I voted no on Proposition 64. I believe everyone up here voted on it, but I'm not going to ask them that. And I believe most of you have voted no on 64. So now we have to manage a problem which is now part of our state's constitution. So that's why we're here today. Some have suggested that we're doing it just for the tax money. That's not going to do anything for us. We need to regulate and manage what we conceive as a retail business that will eventually be just like in all the other states, unfortunately. It's accepted widely. On the way home from Washington, I saw on an electronic billboard, Comfort Care Cannabis, sold at these locations. They started listing the locations. That's how accepted it is, and it was very hard to change the mindset, very hard to change my mindset. And I'm sure it's going to be difficult for some of you here today, and I appreciate you being here today. I truly do. And I'm going to, well, we welcome all of your responses and all your comments. But that's where we are today based on a long journey, and we have to do something before 1 January in some of the areas. If not, then the state takes over, and I don't want the state taking over the city of Riverbank. So at that point, I think I will open it now, unless there's other comments, for public discussion.
Are you going to talk about? I'm going to be doing timing tonight.
Oh,
So
yeah,
if you have
it's
public timing.
It's 5 minutes for your comments.
5
And
minutes
if you
per
agree
comment.
with someone, just say, I agree. If you disagree, disagree. And be respectful, but it's a 5 minutes. But if you're giving us a good point that we hadn't heard before, we shall let you go on my discretion.
Hello, my name's Reggie Kumar. I teach at a Riverbank Martial Arts Academy, about 100 feet right behind where the proposed location is, and I was just looking over the ordinance numbers. We seem to follow the youth center category or group of people, and the cannabis dispensary, it says zoning district and at least 600 feet from school, daycare, or youth center. Does that still apply to this?
We don't discuss.
Oh, I'll just,
Yeah.
no, okay. That's
we'll
all
have
I have
legal
to say.
discuss it
If that,
after.
that would be.
Hi, I'm Vincent Mangiapane. I live right near this site where it's being proposed to put this dispensary at. I'm right across the street from this gentleman here. I have children, neighbors across the street from me and down the block. We all have children. We're all concerned here. It's in bird's eye view. I look right in front of my window. I can see the site in front of me. There's 2 bus stops within 100, 200 feet. Concern is you're going to have riffraff going through my neighborhood. It's not something I want in our neighborhood. I never got a notice. I believe my property is within 300 feet. I never got a notice. So I'm here tonight for the first time to kind of voice my concern. I understand there is you have to be within 600 feet for daycare centers or whatnot. But how about children and people that live near that? You really got to consider that. And my understanding, I spoke to somebody here or in City Hall here. They said there's a 300-foot rule where they were giving out notices. Well, we could discuss that later. I believe my property is within the 300 feet, but 300 feet is cutting it. It should be, my opinion should be even greater than that, especially in a site where we're looking at in a near urban area, in near communities where you got children. You got even a McDonald's right two stores down, where people congregate. The children play there. I mean, you got karate across the street there, and you also have a dance thing across the street there where the O'Brien Center is. My concern is even with the policing or security measures you put in place, you're going to have riffraff people going along the properties around there and the retail areas and conducting some practices we don't want to need that type of attraction in our neighborhood here. So that's a concern, very, very much against it. I'm not buying the whole notion that we should give into this marijuana that's going to, we have no other way to do this. I think looking at medical marijuana here and then the recreational use coming up here, this is nothing California's never seen. Colorado, other states have seen this, and in the last three years, their youth has doubled the usage of marijuana taken. So just keep that in consideration. It's maybe not the best thing. That's another discussion, but my main concern is this thing is going to be right in front of my house. In bird's eye view of my neighbors and myself, I'd be concerned with my children playing out in the street. This week we were playing out, riding bikes. Sometimes I have to go in the house. They're out there playing around. With this facility out there, I don't think I could do that anymore. And it's going to hurt our quality of life, not only for me, but for my neighbors too. That's all I have to say.
Well, of all those hearings, it must have been done under stealth because I've lived in this community for 20 years. Oh, my name's Rich Homer. I live in Riverbank. You know, in the report you have before you tonight, it states that the city vision is to be recognized as a premier community where individuals and families and businesses thrive in a safe and beautiful environment. So during the 2016 election, when Prop 64 was on the ballot, it did pass statewide. Wouldn't question that. But in the city of Riverbank, 1,040 individuals voted yes. 1,284 individuals voted no. Now, I'm not sure when a measure is rejected by 55.24% by the voters, how this adds to a safe and beautiful environment. To me, it's a contraindication of what really is happening here. The location you have selected on Patterson is located in the busiest vehicle corridor in Riverbank. McDonald's many times have cars lined up on the street waiting to get to the drive-through. Arco is the busiest gas station in Riverbank. The left and U-turn at Patterson and Oakdale, that's the most confusing mishmash that Caltrans has put in over there that I've ever seen. Riverbank has experienced 2 fatalities in auto accidents this year. Both of those fatalities occurred at that intersection. And now you want to increase traffic on this already overburdened stretch of road. Has a traffic study been done to determine the impact of automobiles, bicycles, and pedestrians shopping at the recreational cannabis dispensary? In studies in Colorado, there's substantial evidence of statistical association between cannabis and an increased risk of motor vehicles. And you mentioned Washington. I talked to a law enforcement person, and what he said was 80% of the marijuana sold in Washington is still underground. It's still the black market. According to a report, fees referred to as public benefit will be at least $150,000 the first year and $260,000 the next year. Well, if you do pass this, I am hopeful if this is approved, all monies would go to the police services for heightened motor vehicle issues. To hire and outfit a new deputy with a vehicle will initially cost the city $200,000. And there will be an ongoing cost of an additional $140,000 each year. And unlike alcohol use and abuse, there is no accurate roadside test for drug levels in the body. I got this from NPR in July. And here's the rub. Despite the increasingly legal use of cannabis in many states, cops still don't have the equivalent of reliable breathalyzer or blood test, a chemically based way of estimating what the drug is doing in the brain. Though a blood test exists that can detect some of the marijuana's components, there is no widely accepted standardized amount in the breath or blood that gives police or the courts or anyone else a good sense of who is impaired. In Colorado, there is a THC blood test that law enforcement can use to show presumed impairment. If a person has more than 5 nanograms of delta-9, the THC per milliliter of blood, a court or jury can infer that they are impaired according to the Colorado law. But experts maintain that scientifically speaking, this means nothing. We just don't know whether or not that means they are still intoxicated or impaired or not. There are no quantitative measure that can stand up in court, in a court of law. In the best interest of the youth and adults in Riverbank, I strongly urge you to consider another location for a recreational cannabis dispensary that does not interrupt the traffic and lives of Riverbank residents. Thank you.
Any other comment?
I'm Annabelle Gammon, Riverbank, California. It's nice to see you again. In the summary of the planning director of the public hearing of the Planning Commission, I would like to make a little bit of a correction on what I said. It's on page 3. Make just a slight correction. First of all, I am of Riverbank, of Stanislaus County, and I spoke in opposition because of the location and all of the things mentioned here. I don't think I mentioned about traffic with people smoking, but that's minor. Basically, I opposed it for the same reasons that Mr. Homer mentioned, and the other gentleman before that. I'm worried about the safety issues. We have children that come off the bus at 2:58, and even then, McDonald's is already very busy. I live in that neighborhood. I drive there every day, and it's just not the right location. Right now, it's C2, and it is allowed. But Patterson Corridor was not planned this way when we did the general plan update. This was supposed to be a walking, friendly, safe neighborhood. We have O'Brien's across the street, which we love. We have CVS. We have the movie theater. And believe me, there is no way that many parents living in that neighborhood or grandparents would have their children walk now or do their bicycle. Mr. Kumar that spoke before me, he said he cannot take his eyes off his children now when the children are playing outside. I agree with him. I drive there, and there are little kids riding their bicycles. I would have to stay there and watch that they get home safe. That is a responsibility of a citizen that cares for children. Mayor O'Brien says that we are obligated to do this because he doesn't want the state to take over. I would like to state that there are many cities in the county that have opted not to do what we're doing here or what you propose to be doing here. I also understand that there is another dispensary that's going to come before coming before the Planning Commission to be in Main Street, I think, a hotel. Why do we need 2 dispensaries in Riverbank? I just don't comprehend it. In our neighborhood, there's the traffic just going to the stoplight of Oakdale and Patterson. You have to wait for the McDonald's people to go in. It's already dangerous. Everything, I'm just repeating what some people have said before me. So, I have a question on the location. I think there have to be studies done on traffic. And I also worry that stated that there are 17 parking places, which is adequate. Well, it's not adequate when you already have 30 employees that are going to be working there. Already, have you driven there? There is no way that you can put 30 employees parking. They're going to be parking on the street, parking across the street, going to O'Brien's parking lot. So this is, I think you could do better. And Stanislaus County had a meeting, and they're even thinking that they should do this in this industrial zoning, where there are no families. You have to care about families. That is what we are all about in the final analysis, not about being afraid that the law was passed, therefore we have to do this. I do not follow that logic. Also, I went into the Riverbank website and got an
30
application,
seconds.
the filing for that application for cannabis. And I feel that this application was under-noticed. There were only 13 homes that were noticed. I talked to Ms. Denny, and she said that's all that was obligated for 300 feet. Well, under your own application sheet,
Time.
you're supposed to go to 600. And if anybody is willing to know how many houses, their houses will be approved. So this will be fought for the location. You are welcome.
Further public comment, please?
My name is Charles Neal, 2312 Rio Verde Drive, Riverbank, California. And yes, I realize you guys have had study periods and public hearings, and because I've been down here when you had the attorneys down and everything. I just wanted to let you know that in that particular location I'm opposed to. There's a church not too far from it. There's a school not too far from it. And I live not too far from it. So, and the thing of it is, I don't want to hash over what everybody's said, and I don't want to hash over what I've said to each one of you. But we do need to really take a long look at, the police protection in the city of Riverbank. And I realize that you guys, it's on your mind, and I realize you've tried to work at it and everything else. But let's please consider, and I know that that you're saying this is going to be a certain amount of money coming in, but it's not going to even be enough to put one police officer on the street. And we're down by at least 7 or 8 police officers, sworn officers that we need according to the minimum standard. Thank you very much, and you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
My name is Arthur Hidalgo. Live in the city of Riverbank, just down the street. Everybody here has awesome points that they're pointing out. My thing is, I have 3 daughters, 8, 5, and 3. I live right there. I take my kids on the weekends to go ride their bikes over there between where the veterinary is and the building. You guys already have a problem with homeless living in the bushes in the back with all that area there, and now you guys want to bring this over and add to that? I don't think you guys are doing what you guys should be doing. You guys are the city council. You're supposed to be up there looking out for all of us, and I really don't think that you guys are putting our best interest in letting this happen. And I must say, I voted for most of you guys sitting up there, and I cannot say that proudly right now. Mr. O'Brien, I have a dear friend of mine that does a good thing for autism. And when I came to you with Carlos Fierro's 5150 energy drink, you guys told me you would not put it in your store because it went against your morals, and church. And that is one of the reasons why I voted for you. And I'll tell you right now, if this goes through, I'd be very upset with all of you. I cannot believe that you guys are putting not only my family, but the whole community of Riverbank in this position. So I just hope every night when I go to bed, I say my prayers, I put my head on the pillow, I do my best, and I hope that you guys do the same thing. So I really do. I pray for you. I hope God will give you the guidance to make the right choice. But I really don't think this is the right choice. That's all I got to say.
My name is Ted McDowell. I've been a dentist in this community for around 50 years. And I would like to address the council and Mr. Mayor. And I thank you for your concerns, and I appreciate what's already been said. I would like to say a few things from a medical standpoint. I've had a private practice here in Modesto area for 40 years, and then I spent 10 years up at Sierra Conservation Center working in the state prison. And I've seen what this stuff does to mouths. I don't want my grandkids or anybody else's kids exposed to maybe getting talked into using this stuff and wind up having to look like some of the guys that I had to work with up there look like. People say it doesn't have any consequences. I've spent up to $500 for different classes that I've taken, which is what a good medical class costs that has scientific background backing it. And it discusses the changes that take place when people use marijuana. It affects their brain, makes them slower. It's like being drunk, only most people that take marijuana have a feeling that they know that they're impaired, so maybe they're not going to drive as fast. But it also, over a period of time, makes these changes in the brain permanent. And those are things I don't like to see my community members get involved with. Winding up with these types of changes. I also agree that, I don't want this type of thing in my community, and the busyness down there in that area. Sometimes it's difficult to even get down the street to get out to 108 because of all the cars there. But anyway, I just wanted you to see a little bit about the medical side of it, and I won't take any more of your time, but I appreciate what you can do to try to block this. I've been in several states, like your mayor, in Oregon and Washington, and I've seen the locations of several of these cannabis dispensaries. And most of them that I've observed are far on the outskirts of town. One of them in Burlington, Washington, where I was, it's completely on the very edge. It's the very last thing in the community. It's not in the downtown area at all. And I think that if it has to be in our community, then it ought to be totally out on the outskirts. These people are going to drive as far as they have to go to get to it. I don't think the location is any big deal to the users, but it certainly is to those of us who live around here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Bobadilla, and I didn't get notice about this this being put in. I heard about it just about 4 days ago. I'm furious. I have 4 children. I live right across the street from the karate. My kids take the bus to school in the morning and in the afternoon. They're high school students. So that's just beyond me that you guys, as council members, people we voted in to look after our children, look after our community. When you think of Riverbank, I hear people say, wow, Riverbank is like the best place to live. If you put this in, it won't be the best place to live. It'll be a place where you can get marijuana. And if it's supposed to be so legal and it's supposed to be put in and it's okay, why don't we put them in the pharmacies where it's more protected and more taken care of? Right now, just anybody could get it. Anybody gets fake notes and all that stuff, and we know that. And I'm just appalled that you guys really don't pay attention to where that cannabis wants to be put. There's a school. There's the, like everybody stated, the buses. My children are at teenage years. You know what that saying is? Out of sight, out of mind? That's not going to be out of sight. It's going to be right in front of them. These kids are going to be in danger of what is going to happen, you know, and you guys are going to be held responsible, each and every one of you, if you vote this in. And you guys are up there because we voted for you guys. I guarantee you won't have your seat again if it goes in. I promise you that, because that's ridiculous. You got to think of the children and the family members. We did not get notice, and I'm appalled that this is even something that's considered, and even where the zoning is. I'm almost to tears just thinking about that. You guys want to do this. Do this to our community. Riverbank is the best place to live, and it won't be after you guys put that in. You really should really think about it. And maybe you don't care because it's not going to be in front of your house, or because your kids are not in high school and you don't have to worry about them getting off the bus or anything like that. Yeah, we're parents. We should be watching our kids, but we should also have the assurity that nothing will happen and their safety. And it's not going to be safe anymore. You know what people on drugs do? They don't think. And our kids are going to be out there getting off that bus. And you're going to allow something like that to happen to our children. How could you even consider it? Look at the zoning. Pay attention. The movie theaters, Cool Hand Luke's, dinner places. Come on. There's got to be a better place.
Good evening. My name's Shane Hewlin. I don't live in Riverbank. Is it okay if I speak? I live in Modesto. Longtime associate of Mr. Kumar back there. I'm assistant principal of an elementary school in Ceres at Sinclair Elementary School. And although you cannot control the vote or the outcome of Prop 64, what you do have control over is where something like this goes. And I think you've been given ample evidence that this is a poor location to put a cannabis dispensary. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Vargas. I'm a little nervous. I'm only 27. I've never done anything like this, but I take my son to karate, and I work right next door, which is in the same facility where the karate is held. And I work with a lot of college students, ex-convicts, ex-drug users that have used the facility that I work at as a second opportunity for life. to get away from drugs and just that type of environment. So what I wanted to say essentially is that I oppose against the location. Maybe it could be downtown because I know that some people do need this as a medicinal use, and anything else that marijuana is used for, but just the location is not a good spot because of the children and because of the location where I work at and the city of Riverbank. I moved from Antelope to Riverbank because it was getting really bad in Sacramento. So this was also a personal second chance for life for me and my family. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say, that I oppose against the location, and that's all.
Yes, my name is Dennis Starkweather. I'm a resident here in Riverbank. Like my neighbors, I live right across the street. Never received a notice. Never. Didn't know about it until I seen a sign on the door saying what they were going to bring in there. The oil lube place that was there has only been gone for 6 months. And I heard you guys talking about this back in 2014. I don't know if that's the location, but I don't understand how that could have started in 2014 when you still had the oil change place. You had show-off motor trucks there. They've only been gone for maybe 9 months. I don't understand, like you said, over on Charity Way there's a couple dispensary, but that's an industrial area. It's within 5 miles of where you're talking about putting this. So why would you need another dispensary within 5 miles of another one? I don't understand that. Like a gentleman said, they're going to drive wherever they want to drive to get their weed. You know, it doesn't need to be in the residential area. It doesn't need to drive the house prices down. It doesn't need to be where kids can get hit because some dude's stoned and he ran out of weed and is going to get new one. I mean, I just don't understand why this would be even an idea that you guys would think of. The old theater down here on the corner, I mean, it's right next to the sheriff's station. That's a good location right there then. Why wouldn't you put it there? Why would it be off the beaten path? Near a karate school, like you said, school zone, church, housing. McDonald's is a congestion area for traffic. It's bad enough I gotta worry about my neighbor's kids when they're out and some guy missed a turnoff to go into the drive-thru or it's backed out onto Oakdale Road. I mean, that's something that really needs to be looked at before this was even thought of. And then you're gonna have umpteen employees there, parking in the street, parking in front of my house where my granddaughter, you know, they might drop something and I got to worry about her picking something up. You know, back in my day, I could go outside and play and everything else. Nowadays, you've already got all these restrictions of why you can't do that. And now you're going to put another one in. I just don't understand why it has to be there. I don't agree with it. And just like everybody else, I left Modesto because of this kind of crap. And I brought my family here. It doesn't need to be there. Find another location. Move it to an industrial area. Thank you.
My name is Leticia Hidalgo, and I've lived in Riverbank for over 30 years. I work in law enforcement for over 20 years. I have a degree in criminal justice, and I think most of us know that marijuana is the gateway to other drugs, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. Whether it's for medicinal purposes or recreational, we need to have consideration to the effects that it will have on others, such as secondhand smoke. And the person earlier mentioned about the brain cells. Things like that, and having a safe community to live in. I'm a mother of 3. I'm concerned for my kids' safety because we live in that area. I won't feel comfortable walking to McDonald's with them anymore or going to O'Brien's to buy cookies or whatever it is we do as a family, even in working in the law enforcement capacity. I just, knowing what individuals will be in the area and not feeling safe in the community does not feel good. I love living here, and I hope that you will consider everybody's input here. I admire how you opened today in prayer. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that these days. And I'm glad that you're different in that way, that you did that. And I acknowledge that, you know, that you have faith and are not afraid to show your belief. And with that, I would think that you would be different also in making a decision and not accept the marijuana use as the norm. Just because people think it's the normal thing now doesn't mean we have to accept it. We can be different, be known for the city that did not allow it here, and be a family-friendly area for the businesses here and for the residents. Mr. Campbell, you were my second grade teacher at Fair Oaks, and I would hope as an educator that you would fight for our community and for the children that you're here to serve and protect.
Hi, I'm Julie Hutchings. I live in Modesto. However, I own the building that's, if we could have that site plan up again, it'd be really good. I own the building that's right behind the proposed dispensary. I mean, literally a driveway away. And I'm here on Reggie's behalf, who just signed another year lease with me to rent some of the vacant space in my building for his karate school. I mean, look at all these karate people. All the karate people, stand up. Look at all these people that are concerned about this. And I'm a whole bunch back there too. These are children. These are children that are literally a driveway away from where the dispensary is going to be. Okay, so there's 17 parking spaces out front, 30 employees, and people that are going to come to these dispensaries may or may not want to park out front and have people see that they're going into this type of establishment. So where are they going to go? Behind, which is right where my property is. It's right where my property is. It's right where Reggie's karate school is. I've driven by these dispensaries. There's people laying on the lawns. There's garbage everywhere. So I'm here on behalf of Reggie, the karate school, because I really think that it will absolutely negatively affect his ability to get students there. I'm here on my own behalf. I'm worried about the property values for my building. We also, the business that I have is a call center in the other side of Reggie's suite, and we do like to give second chances. I haven't hired anybody perfect yet, and we like to give second chances to people who have perhaps had some drug issues, if they can show that they've been sober for a year or so. I like to give second chances to people that have nonviolent criminal histories, mostly drug convictions, that they can prove that they are really trying to change their lives. And we have changed a lot of lives in my office, where we've given them something to be good at, paid them reasonably well, patted them on the back, and given them a clean, wholesome environment where that kind of contraband is not allowed, period, in the building. A clean, wholesome place for people that are really, really, really trying to maintain their sobriety can work and make a decent living. I'm concerned about that. The ability to hire the people that I want to be able to hire and help the people that I want to be able to help. People that have never had a drug problem may not want to work for me because there's those things going on right there, right there. So I'm asking you to consider an alternative location, and I thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Jody Smith, and I've lived in Riverbank for about 19 years. I live in this area here close by, and it is a problem with the traffic that are on that corner with McDonald's and the gas station when I go to work in the morning, and when I come home at night, and I don't want to see the traffic anymore impacted. I have also been listening to this issue as it's been talked about on a local radio station. They were talking about putting such a place in Oakdale, and I did hear on there one day that law enforcement personnel, his comment was that you can decriminalize marijuana, but you can't take the crime out of it. That I know that it is illegal federally, so they can't put the money in the bank. So there is, it's a cash basis. It's kind of a magnet for criminal activity. And I really urge that you think about this and that you relocate this facility to another area that's not so family friendly, and also that traffic be considered. And that's all I wanted to say.
Hi, my name is Dan Spangler. I'm a resident of Riverbank. I live within a stone's throw of the proposed location for the cannabis store. I can't say much else other than what everybody in this room has expressed already. It would just be rehashing and taking the council's time, but I do agree with everything that they've said. I will reiterate that that is probably the worst intersection in Riverbank right now. We won't allow our grandchildren to walk to McDonald's or walk across the street to the other shops around. It's too dangerous. I think I see accidents there just about every week. Somebody from law enforcement would have to confirm that. So I agree with everything that I've heard except for one thing, and that was something that came from the council, and that was that how many illegal dispensaries are there now? 22? 20, 24. There's 24 illegal dispensaries already, and I don't understand the notion how legalizing a single dispensary is going to help eliminate the 24 that we already know about and don't do anything about. I don't understand how I don't understand the math of that at all. We know there's 24 illegal dispensaries. We don't close them down. We hope that by legalizing one, that's going to do the trick. I don't understand it.
Comment?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mike Ward, and I represent the property owner. Wanted to talk about a couple of issues that have been raised. The first of it, is the council is not being asked to approve the use of marijuana or cannabis with this application. Marijuana has been used in this state for a long time. It's being used in the high schools. It's being used in the college campuses at Stanislaus. It's being used in the community. It is being used everywhere, and police are being impacted by it. The city of Modesto is passing an ordinance to legalize it. The city of Ceres has passed an ordinance to legalize it. Stanislaus County is working on an ordinance they've just had the first reading of to legalize it. The product will be used everywhere around you. It will be used in the city of Riverbank, regardless of whether or not this project is approved or not. The issue is, I think as the mayor said, is does Riverbank want to regulate it and deal with the impacts by getting revenue from the operations of it? Regulation and revenues to offset the impacts. The impacts are already there. You've heard about the lack of police. The police are spending a lot of time enforcing issues that deal with marijuana. If it's regulated, they will not only have to do it less, but they'll have some revenue to help offset the costs that they have. I have one of the owners here tonight, and he has been working with a project in Stanislaus County, and he has firsthand experience that illegal operators are leaving because they cannot compete with legal operations. So the black market will be impacted dramatically if you have a legal operation, and that's the reason why it's happening. With respect to the vote, it was a very close vote in Riverbank. Basically 47% against, 49% against, 47% for. That vote occurred in November, and the question before the voters was, should we legalize it or not? And it was a split vote at that time. Recently in Modesto, they had an ordinance which just was voted on this last about a month, 2 months ago. That ordinance passed by a vote of the people of 82%, 81 or 82%. And the reason was the state has already passed it, and the people are saying, if we're going to do this, let's regulate it. Let's deal with this issue. This will not be an operation where they're advertising cannabis. There's not going to be signs saying cannabis. From the outside, you won't see any product. You won't see anything. The issue of parking was brought up at the Planning Commission, specifically the 30 employees. The answer of 30 employees was, that's the total number of employees that work at the operation. That's not the number of employees that are there on a shift, per se. So you may have 7, 8, or 9 vehicles there that are parked for a shift, but you're not going to have 30 cars parked there. The 17 spaces are what the minimum is required for that location. There's far more than 17 spaces at that location. That's just the minimum that's required by your code. There's about 25 to 26, I think, parking spots at that location. With respect to traffic, the prior use as a lube and oil generated substantial traffic. This operation is not going to generate significantly more, significantly less traffic than that operation generated. And when this...
Excuse me, we were polite when everyone else spoke. Please give him the courtesy as everybody else had.
When this project was initially approved and that building was initially constructed, the traffic that that building could generate was factored into that intersection. It is a very busy intersection, but your environmental analysis and your traffic analysis was completed. Probably the toughest issue that the council has to deal with is something that you know occurs with land use issues. One of the toughest deals I had to face was a few years ago was a home for troubled youth in a neighborhood, and the neighborhood was very upset about it because they didn't want it in their neighborhood. The fact is that any place that you locate this, there will be good people that come and say, we can't have it here. We don't want it here. Every city is facing this. Every council is facing this because there are people that are opposed to it. There are many, many people that support it, and they're not here, but there are many people that oppose it, and it's going to be an issue. But I can tell you that this development agreement has a lot of protection for the city. If any of the bad activity that these folks are describing occurs, that development agreement can be yanked. This operation can be shut down. The city is protected. We contend that this activity is not going to occur because we've had experience with another dispensary where in the entire time it's operated, there hasn't been one time where the police were called out for any problem. An ambulance came out because somebody had a health problem that was unrelated to the facility, but there was no problems. If this thing turns out to be a burden and not a benefit to the city, the development agreement is there as a tool to yank the operation. There's also a catch-all provision, which essentially says, if you pass a new rule that means they can't operate, they're not going to be able to operate anymore. So this is not a carte blanche ticket that you're writing to these folks to be able to do whatever the heck they want in the community. I think that the city is protected in the way that this development agreement is drafted. I think that there's a lot of really lucky kids here because they've got parents that have them engaged in activities after school, obviously. There's a lot of kids that aren't involved in those types of things, and this will afford the city opportunity for revenue to keep recs, parks, programs open for kids. There will be revenue. I don't know about the second dispensary. I don't know what's happening there, but I do know that this one will pay more than its fair share in terms of its impacts to the city. And again, I strongly urge you to consider this. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Devin Stetler. I'm actually one of the 2 applicants on the DA. I'm part owner of the dispensary in question. I almost feel like I should have spoke first. I feel like, first of all, I share the concerns of the people here. I also want to introduce myself to you guys as the community as well. The two concerns I'm hearing most are that we're afraid that this is going to be some kind of trashed environment and there's going to be sleaze around. And actually the reason why I got involved in this is because I appreciate the cleanliness and the community of Riverbank, and we're going to build an upscale, nice establishment here that is ambiguous on the outside, but a properly run environment on the inside and outside. I would not be interested in being in the industry if I weren't able to create that kind of environment and that kind of experience for the community. Second, children. I'm so glad that's being brought up here. I'm so glad the children are here today. Because as we know, cannabis is already here. It's already in our schools. It's known that it's easy to get Monday through Friday during school hours. So what I'm here to do is move this out of an illegal operator's hands, out of the drug dealers, and move this into a regulated, secure, monitored environment where we actually have control of what's going on, where we actually pull this out of these illegal dealers' hands by making it unprofitable for them. And this model's been proven. I'm also a member of the PCF team in Modesto. This model's been proven. We've actually heard from our patients and vendors that the illegal market is drying up because they can't compete with what we're doing. And that makes me feel good. That motivates me to do this in this community, to keep the community clean. I'm here to keep this clean. The issues here are not, I feel like you guys are also getting beat up here. I mean, like you said, we have to make a decision. We have to manage this somehow. And I feel that this establishment is the answer. That is why I'm here. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Further comment?
Thank you.
My name is Joan Stewart, and I live in Riverbank.
Can you pull that down, please, Joan?
Over the last few weeks, quite a few people have come and asked me what I think about this proposed action. And I'm really proud of my fellow people here in Riverbank, because my comment has been, go to the city council, let them know how you feel. And I think that you've heard their feelings loud and clear. We may be stuck with a law that said marijuana is legal, but I think we have control over where those buildings can be located. And again, I think you've heard loud and clear, we really don't want it on one of the main intersections of our city. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ron Roberts. I own the property in question at 2213 Patterson Road. I own the property in question at 2213 Patterson Road. I also am a homeowner in the city of Riverbank, where my sister and mother live. There's been a lot of questions and issues that have been brought up, and I respect the parents that showed up today. I'm a parent of two boys that are 12 and 8 years old. I'll try to speak louder. I think you could be against cannabis. I think being against cannabis and being against dispensaries are two different things. You could actually be against cannabis and be for dispensaries. Currently, for the last 60 or 70 years, people in Riverbank have purchased cannabis. I know that I went to high school in Modesto, and during the week, Monday through Friday, you can purchase cannabis within 5 minutes. Matter of fact, it was easier to purchase cannabis at high school, Monday through Friday, than it was to obtain alcohol. Alcohol is on every street corner. If we open up another AM/PM or a bar, does that mean that alcohol consumption is going to go up? I don't really think so. There was a lot of facts that were stated today, but the question is, did everybody in Colorado come forward and said that I'm a cannabis user prior? I mean, where did they actually get these facts? It's my opinion that there was a certain amount of people that were using cannabis 5 to 10 years ago. There's a certain amount today, and that amount will be the same going forward. Whether you have a dispensary within your city or not doesn't change the fact that cannabis is here. What it does change in a positive way is that I think the PCF model has proven, and many other models have proven, is that you're actually getting rid of the worst part of the industry, which are the drug dealers. They don't have a tested product, there is no oversight and no regulation. And by creating a competitive model that sells a product with a better experience, a legal experience, people today, the millennials today, want to go into a dispensary and know that their product is tested and know where the product came from. They want to know the story behind the product and have the reassurance that the product wasn't sprayed with herbicides or pesticides or anything that could be damaging. That's what's being served to our community today, whether it's Modesto, Riverbank, Ceres, Stanislaus County, Oakdale. I think that all of our communities started on one side of the aisle in January, and they've all progressively moved over to the other side of the aisle. Even our own chief of police supported Measure T. And I believe that was a major reason why the community came out and supported it 82%. There were local firemen that spoke for it in the city of Oakdale. In the city of Merced, there was two of the council members are part of law enforcement. One of them is part of DA, and they both voted in favor of it a couple of weeks ago. I think what's happening here is that parents, like myself, are not for cannabis, and they want to protect their children. But the real way to protect your children is to have oversight, to have testing, to have regulation in a controlled environment, to take it out of our schools, to get rid of the drug dealers. That's what's proven in our society. It wasn't the laws that got rid of moonshiners. It was business that got rid of moonshiners. Today you don't have moonshiners. You don't have people selling alcohol on street corners. They go through businesses because the variety is there. Now, as far as the site itself, it was previously permitted to be a 5-minute pit stop location that has 6 bays that could serve 2 cars per bay. That's approximately 144 cars per hour, 1,440 cars on a 10-hour day. Now, it never achieved that. Matter of fact, in the last 16 or 17 years, nothing has been able to achieve traffic at that location. 2 business owners at that location ran successful businesses and still run successful businesses today, but they were never able to achieve a large amount of traffic or become successful there in 16 or 17 years since the building of that infrastructure. Most people don't want a dispensary near them. The city of Riverbank, the city of Modesto, Oakdale, the entire county is facing with the same issue. I can respect that. I can understand that. I think there's a lot of confusion between the cannabis, being against cannabis, and being against the dispensary. I actually believe if you're against cannabis, you should be for a dispensary. Is there any questions I can answer, or?
Thank you. Excuse me.
We're not here for a discussion, we're here for input. Okay, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Through, next.
My name's Steven Santos. I'm from Oakdale. I bring my money into this town because it's close by. It's got a lot of great things going on. I like how it's moving up. Two of my sisters live in this town, both of them with very little children. The gentlemen for the dispensary have all made some very good points. I don't necessarily see the black market going down. That's like saying, hey, we're going to make automatic assault rifles legal to sell. Well, black market's still going to undercut you. They may not be tagged. They're going to be a hell of a lot cheaper. They're still going to be there. Hopefully, having the dispensary can get rid of some of that. I used to smoke myself. Got no problem with it. Hopefully, it can help some people, and it can help the city. My problem is having it right here next to the school, right next to the homes, at a busy area like that. I used to smoke. It does slow you down. You still think you're great, but it slows you down. The security guard that they're promising, I'm pretty sure is going to be inside protecting their product, not making sure that people aren't in the parking lot getting high, sitting in their cars, doing whatever they're going to do. The customers coming out, hanging out for a while, and who knows how long, really. How long is that high going to last? I just think that, again, as most of us have voiced our opinion, this area that it is proposed to be in is not the correct place for it. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any further? All right, thank you very much. I close the public comment. Okay, you're the last speaker.
Haskell Moore, 3848 Pattersville, Riverbank, California. Thought you needed to beat up a little more, so I thought I'd come back up here. I'm not here to speak about, I don't think you should have it in that location. Let's look out for our location, put it somewhere else. I'm here to say that I don't think you should have it anywhere in Riverbank at all. And I understand there's more than just these two locations coming up. I have property in the location, as you know, a block and a half from here, a block from this hotel. Waited for years for this hotel to go by. It went by. Now you're going to put a dope house there. Thank you. What's the other two locations, Mayor O'Brien, that you want to put these cannabis places besides Patterson and Oakdale Road and here on 3rd Street, if I may ask?
Here for input?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
We will respond after public comment closes. I can't respond during.
Because I understand there's two more places. I don't know if you're putting out 4, and if you win with 1, you go with that, or win with 2, you go with that, or what. But there's kids that goes to school here by 3rd Street, by neighborhood where I have property at. I know most of them because I grew up on Stanislaus Street just around the corner since 1962. And we have kids that go to school there. We got seniors that live in the neighborhood that don't do dope. And you're not going to put the guy on the street out of business by having this, because this is more expensive to run this than it is a guy on the street. Trust me. I'm not a dope dealer. I never done dope. I'm highly against dope of any kind. And to me, cannabis is dope. The only people who should be allowed to use that is people with heart conditions, cancer. There's no other choice. Or it's a great relief for them if they, rather than taking pain pills with their terminal. Or they just have cancer and they got 2 or 3 years left. Okay, but to make it a luxury drug like a glass of wine at a party, no, it's not. That's not good. I don't think it should be in town. And they said, you were just told that it's not. You said yourself it's not that much revenue for the city if you allow it. So why bother with it? If the other towns wants it, okay, let them have it. But keep Riverbank a clean little town. I wanted to mention also, well, you can't tell me a place later. Why 4 places in a town this size? Oh, you can't comment on that either, I guess. Okay. Property value. Do you have any idea what this does to property value? Like I said, I own a house around the corner there. And if you put a cannabis house in right here on 3rd Street, it's gone. I won't be able to sell that. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here. But another reason too is a little neighbor girl next door to my property there that I seen her mother grow up in that house. And she is like a freshman in high school now, I believe, something like that. She walks that way every day back and forth. I don't rent that house. I've had opportunity to rent it several times, but I didn't rent it because of my neighbors. I don't want to put nothing on them. Like, who do you know you get for a rental? Sure, you fill up an application out, but it don't mean you're getting what you think you're getting. Also, I want to mention
30 seconds.
See you next time.
Thank you. Now I close public comment. First off, I truly appreciate your comments. We've heard a lot of that from before. I had one individual who says, you can put it anywhere, not just there, because I don't want it in my backyard. And that's one of the issues, not in my backyard. One suggested, and I had to stop the comment, because it seemed to be going racial, but put it in the poor section, put it in those other people's. I don't like those type of comments. So, not in my backyard is a legitimate concern. I believe it was Julie, you have the call center. When the call center was operating fully, it had 210 employees, not there all at the same time, but every day you would have about 210. Turnover was about 70 cars each shift, and each day generated around 420 movements of vehicles, unless you had a single family car, which created come in, drop off, go back out, come in, pick up, go back out. So that whole area, the traffic study was taken a look at. If the traffic becomes an issue, we will adjust the traffic pattern, the right turn in and the right turn out on Patterson Road. We have the ability to be that flexible, to protect the neighborhoods and the individuals. As for the security guards will be one inside and one outside, and the door will remain locked. The guard on the outside will tell the guard on the inside to open the door. He has a legitimate one, and he's able to see. Okay? That's how that operation goes. They're pictured. They're videoed. So those of you who think they're going to sneak around the corner, they're not. They don't. They go in, they get it, they get out, and go on their way. They don't use in the parking lot. You're saying, well, how can you be assured? The security guard outside will stop all operations if they see any illegal activity. Because if there is illegal activity, they get shut down. They're put in $1 million. They can get shut down in an instant for any infraction. No one under the age of 21 can go into that facility. If they do, they get shut down. I have no decision-making at O'Brien's Market, so 5150, whatever that is, although you talked to me about it, I passed it up the chain. I don't know what a 5150 is. And we never discussed it in 2014. We discussed it only this year since it's taken on our responsibility. The reason why I pointed out the illegal operations, Stanislaus County just passed their first reading to control the regulation of cannabis. Of that, they will only have 7 in operation. And they will shut down all the illegals, so where they're going to go. If there is a void, they'll go wherever they can go. We have people trying to buy buildings to open up cannabis without going through the proper regulations. We won't let that happen. So we are here for the protection. The comments of we don't take into consideration the security and the safety of the citizens of Riverbank is wrong. Each one of us had grave concerns at the beginning of this year. We've studied it, we looked at it. If we don't manage it, it will manage us. The fees that we get from this one isn't going to pay for a cop, but a fee from another one will put in an extra cop or allow for overtime. We will prevent any illegal use outside of our control. I can't control it if someone buys it and gives it to a 17-year-old. Many of you use the arguments I used to go against Proposition 64. I didn't want it. There's going to be a large increase in use between the ages of 12 and 17 and on college campuses. There is. It happened in the past. It happened everywhere. And the Californians said it's not going to happen here, and we're better than that, and I don't think we are. But there's going to be an issue, a void, once those dispensaries leave. And if we have a dispensary here that has the eyes and the ears on their profitability and their safety, they can prevent illegal operations from popping up. That is our logic behind it. It may be flawed to a point, but it's not in my backyard. Well, it is. Riverbank is a backyard. And I'm sorry, I get emotional. We didn't want to have to deal with this at all. Pardon me?
I have some comments, too.
Yes, you will have your chance. That's basically all I have. And as for the cash, we're working on a deal to try to get the cash into a credit union, which is not federal FDIC, but it is one that can be used, so you can eliminate a lot of that potential. There has been very few violations at dispensaries because they know it is the most scrutinized industry. And this city council, this city manager, and the chief of police will be scrutinizing the operations for the protection of the citizens of Riverbank. That is what we have all promised, and that's what will happen. And as you were told by the owner, that it can be shut down in an instant. And we will do that, and they're fully aware of it. Okay, counsel?
I have a couple things I'd like to say. One, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And I guess I'm going to start off by saying I am in agreement with very many of you that this is a scary undertaking to think that some of these things are going to be happening in our town. I do, however, take great offense to some of the things I heard tonight in thinking that I don't live in this town. I don't have some of the same concerns. I live in this town. I live in that neighborhood. I am an educator. I have children that go to school here in Riverbank. I have a grandchild that goes to school here in this town, and I am very concerned. So if you think that what we have been doing up here for the last 9 months and going over with a fine-tooth comb and trying to decide what we're going to do for the city has been very light. I also heard some comments about sliding things through, not noticed publicly properly. I think you guys need to take a look, and you can go back onto our website and review all of the meetings that we've had. I have to say, I never once thought when I was voted to be on this dais that I'd ever be sitting up here talking about marijuana. And if you think that's been very easy for me, I teach school. I have for 25 years, and if you recall, we had a big campaign that talked about the war on drugs. Okay? I'm up there with all the DARE parents with that, talking about the war on drugs. We used to have cars, DARE, red, the police cars, all that kind of stuff. So if you think this has been easy for some of us, you're gravely mistaken. And if you think we've not spent time and energy thinking about where this is going and what our recommendations are and what's happening, then you're gravely mistaken. So please don't put words into my mouth and stuff like that. I have taken a lot of this seriously. And I have educated myself. I have to say that when I hear words like riffraff, people laying on the lawns, you are 100% incorrect on how these dispensaries, excuse me, I was very polite when everybody else got up there to talk. It's my turn. I have visited 3. Now, first off, I'm going to say I do not smoke marijuana. I do not condone it, but it has been voted and it is legal. When you hear it called contraband, you can't call it that anymore. The only way I can equate something like this is what we experienced when Prohibition came about. And if you look at history, there were all kinds of crazy things went on during Prohibition. And it was a very trying time when things switched over from alcohol being illegal. And the only way I could get my head wrapped around some of this was to think about legalizing marijuana like they legalized alcohol. I don't have to partake in marijuana. I don't think I will. But I have to say, I have visited 3 dispensaries. Did I ever think in my lifetime I would go into a dispensary? The first one I went into, I was afraid, scared to death, that I would see one of my students in there. I sit up here I'm sorry, I just get emotional about it. Let me pull myself together. So I take great offense to some of the comments that are up here. All right? I encourage each and every one of you to go take a look at some of these. You do not see riffraff anywhere in their area. You do not see people lying on the lawn in front of them. There was no garbage. One thing I have to say is these are, and you might be kind of shocked by what I say, these are legitimate business people that are trying to have a legitimate business, and they are dying to be legitimate. So if you think any one of these people that are going to open up this dispensary is going to have anybody outside smoking this in front of their establishment, their business, you're crazy. They are not going to allow it. They will not allow having people do anything outside their business that would affect them. Now, I'm saying that, and I live in your neighborhood. I do. And I teach high school. You think I want any of my students? And I'm going to say, yes, I'm sitting up here, and I'm going to vote tonight. And I have to go to school tomorrow morning and be able to justify my vote. And with that, I will tonight. And I feel confident in what I'm doing and have spent many hours going over this and recommendations. Now, I wish all of you would have been here for the last 9 meetings where we wanted input. We wanted to hear from everybody. There was very little folks that came out and gave any one of us any kind of input to do this. All right. Bear with me a minute. Turn your timer off. I was elected and I can go as long as I want. Other cities, I want you to know that Riverbank is in the forefront. When we talk about being the city of action, we have come up with some ordinances that other cities in the state of California is copying off of our website and placing in theirs. If we've got people in other cities calling us and saying, how are you guys handling it? We want complete control over how this is going to happen in our city. We are not voting in legalization of marijuana. That's done. That ship has sailed. But what we're doing is we are controlling it as best we can. One more time, I am not for legalizing marijuana in this town. It's already been done. But I am for controlling how it's going to happen in my city.
Cal Campbell?
One more second. I'm not done. Nope. I've just got a couple more here. Bear with me. One comment I did not hear one single person talk about alcohol. Excuse me, I think I heard one mention it. It was Mr. Haskell. I did not hear one person talk about watching alcohol being sold. The local theater, liquor stores, grocery stores, AM, PMs. Just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
That's not true, ma'am. I did.
Excuse me.
No, I'm sorry.
You cannot talk right now. I was respectful. I was respectful when you talked. I was respectful when you talked.
Stand up. No.
Excuse me. I was respectful. I was respectful when you talked. Yeah. I just have two more things to say, and then I'll turn it to my other council members. I think that there's more restrictions on selling cannabis than there is on alcohol, and I think I'll end with that comment. And just one more thing, I was completely respectful to every single person that was out here, and I listened with a heavy heart to everything everybody was saying, and I hope you will listen to what I have to say, and if you'd like to tell me, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it later on. There's a certain format that we follow here, and I really respected that format, and I hope that all of you do too. Thank you.
Okay. Cal Campbell. I'm probably the longest living councilman on the council that's been in this area. I've been here since 1962 when it all began. Went to high school in Oakdale. Back then, just as now, it was available. I watched it. I'm not a user, never have been really, but I've had a lot of friends that I've watched use it over the years, and some of them were good friends, and that was their business. But a couple things that bothered me. One, first of all, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out here. We really do appreciate your coming out here to talk to us, and we are listening to you. And we realize your neighborhood. Guess what? I live in the neighborhood. I'm around the corner from the Language Arts School, and I've been in that neighborhood for 32 years, and I've watched it grow. And I've watched the traffic get congested because of poor decisions made at time, and just the traffic's getting congested because of the growth also, because you can only do so much with the roads. Galaxy Theater pulls in over 700,000 customers a year. They contribute a lot to some of our traffic congestion over the last few years. But I want to clarify just a couple of things. One, as my colleague next to me, the Vice Mayor, said, marijuana is legal. I didn't vote yes for it. I didn't legalize it. But it is here. And you have the ability to either try to control how it's here or to just let it go rampant. And that was spoken on very much by several people, so I won't labor on it. We have some tough decisions to make up here. I'm a retired educator, but I've listened to a lot of things, and I've been a lot of places. One of the things that I dislike is discrimination. I see, and you guys have to think about this. We did not start this business. This is a business that applied to come to our community to run a business. You should not discriminate against them and give them at least a chance, and you were doing that somewhat tonight. I happened to visited the distribution centers just as my colleague had. First time I went by it, I didn't even know it was there. I had trouble finding it. When I went in, I can tell you, it was very professional. They had security guards. They took me on a tour. I asked a lot of questions. What do you do if people walk out of here smoking it or starting to use it because they're medical marijuana, you know, start popping it in their mouth? We take it, if we catch them on camera, we immediately take stuff back and we send them away. Now, you guys need to realize it is here, and it's probably there's over 1,400 people in this community based on figures that are using it right now. I like the medical portion of it better than I do the recreation. But again, it is legal, and it won't go away. I personally favor having a dispensary where we are in control than I do just having it out there on the open market as it has been in the past. Likewise, this is a very quality outfit, and the title for this particular project is the Riverbank Cannabis Pilot Program. When we started developing this, I insisted to our city manager that we have all kinds of exclusions in there. We're not sure how this is going to work out. We've read about Washington and Colorado. There will be problems from it, but there will be the problems with it, with or without the distribution center, because this is just the nature of it becoming legal. Your neighbors are going to be allowed to grow it in their houses if they want to get a permit, and that's a law from the state of California. So there's a lot happening, and we're trying our best to do what we can to control it. Again, when I visited this particular dispensary and the other ones, they were running a very professional business. If you were to walk by it, you wouldn't even know that it was there because there aren't big signs letting you know it's there and whatnot. It's a very discreetly ran business and was a very professional business. So as I say, we've got a tough decision to make up there. Because see, if we don't, we know it's going to come. And if we don't open a dispensary in here, we don't get any additional funds to help us with public safety. The funds from these particular projects will eventually pay for more public safety officers because we need them to help control what isn't just happening in your neighborhood, but what's happening all over the city. So I want you to think a little bit about where you're coming from. I don't like the product either. I voted no on it, but I have to make a decision that I feel is best for this city in the long run. And I do live in your neighborhood, and there are traffic problems, but they've been there a long time, and I don't see them going up that much more because of what's formerly happened there. And you know, it's just one of the things, cities as they grow, that we have to live with. All the communities in our area are experiencing them at some time. Again, I appreciate you coming, and like I said, we've got some tough decisions to make here.
Well, I just want to say I thank everyone also for coming, and I want to thank my fellow council members for what they had to say. I agree with everything they did say, but when we make decisions, we try to make decisions that are the best for not just personal interests, but for the whole city. And it's very difficult at times for us to make those decisions. But when we started looking at the development agreement, one of the things that I asked to make sure that we included, or was included, was a risk management plan. And with that risk management plan meant that if any business that comes under this development agreement, if they do not follow the rules, if for any reason we feel like we need to pull that development agreement, we can do that. And, you know, if we need to adjust it, if we need to close them down, those kinds of things are in that development agreement for any given reason. And we did go to a dispensary. I had a chance to go to 2 dispensaries, and one of them was in a residential area, and it was a very busy residential area. And you did not know that it was a dispensary. There were no outside signs. It was not a lot of people going in and out. And I just feel that this is a business, and we need to give them a chance. And like I said, with the risk management plan, we can pull it if we feel that they're not following the rules, and that's what we need to do. So, thank you.
I too want to thank. Got to turn me on. I always forget. I want to thank everybody for coming out and for your comments. This was not easy. This is my first year on council, and to come in and have to do a marijuana thing. First of all, it brought me back to college. But anyway, it was difficult. And I'm proud to be a council member and work with these people because we came up with what I feel is a really good ordinance, one that, as Leanne said, is modeled by other cities. But also we came up with a development agreement that makes it so that we control who comes in. We make sure that we have the security that we want. We make sure that we have the business that we want. We make sure that they are in locations that we want. We have done everything that we can to make it safe for our citizens. I too went to a couple of dispensaries. I didn't even know they were dispensary from the outside. And I went in, and it's kind of like going into a high-end clinic. I mean, you have to show that you have the money or you have a medical card. You have to go in and you're in line, and it's all very strict, very professional, and it's amazing how they do this and how they run their business. There is nobody sitting in the grass. There's nobody lurking around. They don't allow it. And like everybody has said here, they're out of business if they do, and we will not watch it. We will not allow it. All of us drive that street. You all drive that street. You all have our numbers. If you see anything, all you have to do is call us. We will take care of it. We will watch and make sure that this is safe. I have a child too, and I'm concerned about my child, but I'm actually more concerned about my child at school and getting drugs than I would be about this facility. It's so safe. They don't let people linger. People aren't going to be lingering. People aren't going to be out on the corner walking by your child trying to sell them. They won't allow it. So I appreciate, again, your comments. I really just want to emphasize that I would have liked to have had more comments like this when we went through this process. It was kind of hard for me as a first-time council member to not have anybody out there when we're trying to decide whether we want dispensaries or not. I didn't want one. I voted no. But I have to go with the council on what we voted, and we said yes. So I support what the council has voted on, and I support having this business come in because I have researched, I have gone out and seen his businesses, and I feel that this is the best way for the city of Riverbank to handle having this business come in. Thank you for your time.
I was a Navy officer for 32 years, had a drug test every month because of my security clearance. I had a top secret, special category, and it was quite telling that I had to have a drug test every month. I'm against drugs. I'm against cannabis. Again, we're not legalizing cannabis, we're controlling it. The comment made that you can be against cannabis, but be for the dispensary fits the ideology that I have. I can't use it because I'm still under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Until they approve it, I can't even have the topicals. As for, why don't you put it in supermarkets, CVS, that's illegal according to the state of California. It has to be a standalone, can't be sold with alcohol, can't be controlled as a medicine. And as for medicinal, again, it's no longer medicinal because that was changed by SB 94 that Brown signed on the 27th of June. Before I bring it up to a vote, is there anything legal that we have left out?
Mayor and Council, just a couple of things we'd like to address based on comments from the public. There seem to be concerns about some of the noticing requirements and confusion about the state requirements for noticing. anytime that a development agreement comes before an appointed or elected body, state law requires noticing to the property owners within 300 feet. So any representation that it's more than that or 600 is not true. The city follows state requirements, and based on staff's report and input from legal, all of those requirements were met for noticing purposes. Second, there was a question raised by a member of the public related to youth centers and whether or not the school, the karate school that is located, I believe it was stated about 100 feet from this location, whether that falls within that definition. The city's requirement of, well, I'll start with the state requirement. State law prohibits cannabis uses from being located within 600 feet of sensitive uses. Sensitive uses, as defined by state law, include daycare centers, schools, and what's been deemed as youth centers. Now, youth centers is a broad encompassing term, but that really relates to those types of businesses that cater only specific, well, centers that cater to specifically that demographic. So if you fit that definition under state law, then you would be excluded, and no business could be located within that. Based on the language of the state regulations and the city ordinance, that does not apply to the school in question. So if there's a concern about that, it meets the requirements under state law and under the city ordinance. The third point that I think was raised by members of the council and by some members of the public is the enforcement mechanism, and I know that council was very clear about their desire to have certain mechanisms to enforce the rules and the regulations. The city's process actually basically entails 3 levels of regulation. One is a state level. All these businesses are now required to obtain a state license, and they have to meet certain criteria in order to do so. If they don't obtain a state license, they cannot legally operate. So any operation without that state license is illegal, and law enforcement can move in and take action against those businesses. Second, at the local level, the city's ordinance and the way the city is going to process these particular businesses is through a conditional use permit and a development agreement. As members of the council stated, the development agreement is very specific in stating that if you don't comply with the requirements of the development agreement, the city can terminate it. And there's very clear enforcement provisions in there to do that. State law requires that under a development agreement, the city council evaluate and conduct an annual review of the terms of the development agreement. So aside from any particular comments being made from the public, the city council has a requirement to bring that forward and review it annually. Second, the conditional use permit works hand in hand with a development agreement, because if the operators violate any of the rules placed by the city, they can come before the planning commission or ultimately the city council for possible revocation. So the city has those 2 mechanisms to make sure that the rules are being followed and that the operators are agreeing and complying with the terms that they promised the city and essentially promised the public. So I can answer any more questions as to the specific terms of the development agreement or any other issues brought up.
Just to clarify, the Planning Commission already voted this in with a vote of 3-1, correct?
They considered both the conditional use
I'm
permit.
sorry. Can you guys please close the door? I'm having a hard time hearing our attorney. Thank you. Again, we were respectful when other people were talking. I just asked for that same respect.
You should be mayor.
I'm sorry. I just think it's the polite thing to do. I'm sorry. Can you continue?
Okay, council.
Thank you.
The conditional use permit was considered by the Planning Commission, and there was a majority vote to move that forward. And they also considered separately the development agreement and moved for recommendation to the council. The development agreement is solely within the purview of the city council to approve.
Okay, thank you.
Right, do I have a motion on item 5.1?
I move that we accept item 5.1 as stated.
Can we please have the doors closed? Thank you.
One? And we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.2, consideration of a resolution approving a general plan amendment number 01-2016, designating 9.1 plus or minus acreage to low-density residential, LDR, located at 6272 Central Avenue, APN 062-021-008, a project known as Riverbank. And first reading by title only, an introduction of a proposed zoning ordinance amendment number 01-2016, approving the rezoning of
I hope the money's worth it, okay? I hope you guys are happy.
9.1 plus or minus acres to planned development located at 6272 Central Avenue, APN 062-021-008, a project known as River Run. And a resolution approving the request of R&K Low 1997 Revocable Trust for tentative map application number 01-2016 to subdivide 9.1 acres plus or minus into 51 planned developed single-family residential lots.
Thank you, Mayor. Donna Kinney, our Planning and Building Manager, will give the report, and I believe the project applicants are also here this evening.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. As you mentioned, this is a three-part project with a general plan amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, and tentative map. The project location is the northeast corner of California and Central, directly behind the high school. Here is an existing aerial view of the proposed subdivision map on top of an aerial, so you can kind of see the location of buildings and structures around it. There is a school to the left of the photo, some buildings to the north. There's a single-family residence and pasture land to the right, and then the same below, residences and some farmland. And then catty corner from them on the southwest corner is another proposed subdivision. The current designation is medium density residential, which allows 8 to 16 houses per net acre. Net acre means that you remove things like the basin and the parks and the streets, the street network from that calculation. They're proposing a general plan density of low density, 1 to 8 units per net acre. So the project would work out to about 5.6 units per net acre. The municipal code requires the project to be consistent with general plan policies. Design 2.5, the city requires visually attractive streetscapes with street trees and sidewalks, planting strips, attractive transit shelters, street lights in appropriate locations. The project does, through its design guidelines, require all of this. Policy Conservation 4.2, the project shall provide for the removal of stormwater and do it in a way that does not impact the Stanislaus River or associated groundwater recharge areas. The project does do this. It has been reviewed by staff and the city engineer, and large amount of time has been spent looking at stormwater, specifically the flooding in the past of that intersection, Central in California. We believe that some of the improvements that the developer is making or will be making will take care of that flooding. The rezone, the project is currently zoned R1, and they would like to have it rezoned to a planned development. Here's a chart comparing the LDR zoning standards with the proposed PD standards. As you can see, the square foot minimum lot size drops 1,000 feet from the R1 statute. The lot width is a little bit smaller, but the length stays the same at 100 feet minimum. There are other standards that they have kept the same, like your front setback, your garage setback, but then they are actually increasing the rear setback from what is required from the R1. After reviewing this, staff has determined that there are at least 3 standards that the applicant should offer amenities in exchange for allowing those standards in their subdivision. Some of the, did I put it on there? I didn't put it on there. So the amenities that they have been talking about is to put electrical connections in the garages so people can have their electrical vehicles plugged in. They have also talked about an enhanced signage excuse me, made of concrete, and in addition, enhanced landscaping in that area. And although the basin will be a basin and not a park, they have proposed some picnic tables and grills and trash containers along the upper rim so that people can enjoy the green open space even though it isn't a park. They will be paying park fees in exchange for that. And so at project final, when it's determined with the park, let's see, they'll need to compensate for 0.44 acres of parkland at the price of land when the project is final. Their design guidelines does not really discuss the architecture because they're not sure of the product that they'd like to have, if they're going to build or if they're going to bring in a developer. So we have some example of architecture that they would like to see. Some single-story, 2-story houses, and a streetscape that's inviting and walkable for the community. Environmental, an initial study was done and a mitigated negative declaration. It was sent out to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and was circulated to various outside agencies. The review period closed in November, and we just got 2 comments back. One was just, they need to take care of their stormwater, and the second one skips my mind. It was another general comment that we sometimes get from these agencies. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant
was that second comment about Caltrans traffic? Wasn't that it?
Yes, it was. Thank you very much for reminding me. But traffic studies have been done in that area, both in the previous map that was done in like 2005 or 2006, and there are intersections nearby that the city has done traffic studies on, so we feel confident that the environmental document has addressed any concerns about traffic. So if there are additional questions, I'd be happy to address those.
I have one.
Yes.
I may have missed it. Are they doing anything in the subdivision proposed for bicycle lanes?
The streets within the subdivision will be complete streets, and except for the one that runs east and west, they will have center divide, not center divides. They will have parking on both sides and sidewalks and greenery, and where'd they go? I can't recall specifically if there's a bike lane on the route. I'm trying to recall. I've still got cannabis on the brain. I'm sorry. I know they're not growing it there. I mean, we're going to put houses here. Thank you.
Donna, I have a question. So this area will have their own, I guess you call it CDF, right?
Actually, they will be annexed into the Community Facilities District.
Okay.
And so it will take care of the basin, and there is a Lot B on there where some OID piping comes in and goes down the street. That OID lot will have like a wooden fence at the rear, and it'll have wrought iron fencing and landscaping in front of it between their fencing and the street to maintain the character of the neighborhood. And then along the front of the building, in front of the subdivision site, there will be additional landscaping, and it will all be maintained by the CFD.
Thank you. That was CFD. I got it.
One quick one, I know the broader picture for the stormwater is just not retention on site, but eventually into a stormwater district. Is that going to be facilitated?
Actually, yes, the city, staff intends to work with OID and the neighbors in the area to work on a long-range solution. The storm basin will satisfy all the stormwater requirements for the subdivision itself, and then the piping that they're putting in the street in front of it will assist with some of that flooding that comes from the OID tailwaters. But we know that's just all temporary solutions. Bruinville does have a plan for a series of basins that may be appropriate, maybe not, considering this, the conditions nowadays. But we do hope to move forward and conduct a study to see how we can address all the stormwater in that area.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Open up to the public for comment.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Kerry Pope, 3237 Riverside Drive here in Riverbank. Hopefully this will be a little easier than the last item on the agenda, but I'm here to answer any questions. I know that one of the big challenges of this site was the stormwater and the flooding over in that area, and I know that Dolly is here, the neighbor to the east, and we've done the best that we could to address that. We're installing a 36-inch line in front of the subdivision over on California to dump into the Riverbank drain and take that eventually out to the MID lines. We're also installing some French wells over on the south side of California as well, so that should help in that endeavor. But the pond itself will be retaining the stormwater that we have just within the subdivision. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I saw your percolation test, which was satisfactory. We need to account, when it does storm, the amount of water that's percolating down, so we can take credit for it in the future. When California starts charging us for all water, I want to be able to say, I'm putting it back in the water.
Absolutely. And it's funny how things have transgressed. I've been developing for over 30 years, and we used to do it with retention basins to accomplish that goal. And the state has, since done other things, and they've come full circle back around, and that's really what needs to happen, is to get the groundwater recharged. So,
Any other public comment?
thank you.
There are bike lanes.
I'm Dolly Cole at 4537 California Avenue. My property, I have a picture of where I'm at. I back up. Most of my property backs onto this. I was kind of going along with this development, but people look at a computer and they look at a map. And I have big issues on my place. Number one, I have a private line that OID's water goes through. It's my private line. I have a letter from OID's in 2008 stating it's my responsibility. I get flooded on Snedeker. I get flooded from this property. And if I probably wouldn't have any objections if somebody from the Planning Commission, the developer, would have come to me and say, do you have any issues? And I can show them my issues. This is you probably can't see from here. This is the ditch. This is the ditch. Well, my property is here, backs up, and the ditch is way down here. I have, it's banked up along here. It's banked up alongside my fence like this. I have posts leaning over. That was done by OID when they decided they'd put an access road in. So, looking at their drawing, they can fix the drain, the water in that ditch. But they're gonna have to move all this dirt that's along my fence completely. And then on the other side of my fence, my property drops down. It's hard to explain. And you look on a map, you don't see any of that. They're gonna have to, I have 2 pipes that go through this bank underneath my fence that they're gonna have to pull out. It goes over the ditch. They're useless pipes. They're gonna have to be pulled out. That means pulling these pipes through my fence and down. I mean, if somebody would just come out instead of looking on a computer and looking at a map, and I could say, what are you gonna do about this? What are you gonna do? They're planning on putting a 36-inch pipe in to take this drain water that comes through my property. But my pipeline is just by my fence line. So how are they gonna hook their 36-inch pipe to my pipe that's probably been in there? I've been there 45 years. I have no idea how big that pipe is under that ground. I have none. And who knows in what condition. But that my pipeline, that drain water from OID ends just on the other side of my fence. They're gonna have to get into my property and hook up to that pipe, which I'm responsible for, according to this letter in 2008 from OID. So, sure, they'll solve their problem, but what about me? I'm hung out to dry with this old pipe that they're gonna connect to. That, my whole thing is I wish, and I've said this for years, I've been to so many meetings from God knows where, if we could just get after OID to shut that water from running through these 2 parcels, which will never happen. You know, I don't know. It comes from across the street. It's an open ditch across from me. It goes through and then goes under Snedeker, which is leaking right now between the road and my fence line. And then it goes through this pipeline that's through the whole width of my property, 621 feet of pipeline. So, but if somebody would just come and say, okay, this is what we can do to solve this problem. We're gonna have to tear down your fence. We're gonna be digging in because according to your map, the houses are backed up to my fence. And there's a big area probably from, well, width of OID's easement, probably from here to way over there is my fence line, and all this is dirt that's backed up on my fences. So I want some solution. Right now, the way it is, I'm opposed until somebody comes and says, we can fix this is what we'll do when we bring in a bulldozer and start shifting dirt. So right now, I'm opposed to it until I get some satisfaction. And it takes in a big portion. I have 5.8 acres, and this length back here is, I think I looked at, that's over 450 feet or more of my property. And, you know, just come on my property. Let me show you what I mean. Don't look at a computer, don't look at a map, because you can't this has to be all done before anything's done. I don't know what the timeline is on this. I have no idea. And really, I don't care. I don't plan to move, just solve my problems in the back. And take consideration that they're going to hook up a pipe to my private pipeline that OID says I'm responsible for. And if anything happens, I'm liable, according to OID. So that's my opinion. Right now, I'm opposing this whole thing.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Bringing it back. Can you address that issue, please, Donna? Because I'm looking at it right now. If it's OID, it's OID's problem. And are we what are we doing with OID? And first off, whose property is it on?
That drainage?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here,
Right, it's on the project site.
on the project side.
And that whole fence line that she says is falling over, that will be backyard, there will be backyards to houses there, and there will be all new wooden fence along there.
Okay, then what about her, not her pipeline? If it's on her property, that's her, how about the drainage ditch that's right there, or the irrigation ditch that is right there?
Well, my understanding of the project, and maybe their engineer can speak to that, I don't know the technical aspects of it, but there is there is a lot that will be dedicated to OID, that the pipeline, the water will be undergrounded, it will go through the lot, and then be piped down underneath the street to California.
And who does that ditch serve? It's an irrigation ditch, right? No. It's just a drainage ditch? So we will take care of the drainage on that through the basin?
Yes, it will be piped, and there will be no ditch there any no
Will we
longer.
impact her pipe on her property?
I don't believe so, but that would be a question I'd like to defer to the applicant and engineer.
Carrie, would you mind coming up and kind of addressing? So we talked about this at great length because, as the resident stated, there is a tailwater problem there. She's absolutely right that it has to do with OID controlling, shutoffs upstream. And so part of the thing that we discussed very early on, because for the applicant, obviously they don't want the backyards of their residences soaking in tailwater. That wouldn't be a very good product to sell. So Carrie's engineers, we sort of said it to them, how are you going to solve this problem? And they came up with a solution. So maybe you could just address that.
The real issue is OIDs. I mean, and Dolly's correct. I mean, it's you don't get a lot of satisfaction with them. We met with them half a dozen or more times to be able to emphasize to them that most of the flooding issue down there is from tailwater. And, they need to control the people that they provide water to upstream, because they don't. The gates are left open, and then it ends up flooding down on this end of the region. Our solution was that we're installing that 36-inch line that will eventually, that by the way, has a catch basin over by where our properties meet, where our property and Dolly's meets out on the street, to be able to capture that water and take it out through the Riverbank drain. It really wasn't our responsibility, but we agreed to do that because it's an issue. And I think that the whole drainage issue in that whole region needs to be addressed. We've talked about it for some time. And so, she's correct. One of the things that, the other things that we had to do is we're going to have to repair potentially a crushed line that's going across California and Central. Again, not really our responsibility, but we're going to do it because we want that to drain properly. So between that, the 36-inch line, controlling our water on site through the basin, and the French drains on the south side of California, I don't know how much more we could do. That's
Legal, is there any way that we can compel OID to prevent flooding on properties not desiring to be flooded? I know they're a special district with special rules because they're special.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Mayor. I'm always hopeful that something will bring issues like this to a head, but it's been my experience that that's difficult with OID. I work with them on many issues in other cities, and actually have something tomorrow that I'll be discussing about them and with them later, and I will add this to the mix, and we will try again to see if we can get their help on this, but it's going to be difficult.
Before this project goes forward, before you start developing, I like to have a meeting with the city manager, myself, and OID. I don't want one of their managers as well as an elected official, especially to our district, and we can discuss the problem and see if we can come to some resolution. And I believe that we'll have your best interests at heart. I need to understand what you want us, or if there is any obligation for your piping that you have on your property. But other than that, I think we need to talk it over with OID and come up with any additional resolutions.
Yeah, I think that you're talking about going further east with some solutions. I mean, this particular intersection is the one that's kind of gotten the brunt of it. We believe through our engineers and through OID engineers that what we're proposing with regards to the piping that's going to be installed will solve the issue, but it's got, I mean, depending on how much control they have upstream with the tailwater, they have got to control that. If they don't, I mean, anything is going to flood if they don't control the tailwater. We'll be happy to bring our engineers as well with that meeting.
Also with that, let's talk stormwater with them, because I want to make sure that we're, just a second, ma'am. I'll ask you back up. Normally I don't, but give me one moment.
Yeah.
I want to talk with OID because they have to be compliant with MS4, and I want to sit down with them with MS4 and see if we can get together with them and the Army Corps for a regional stormwater system that will satisfy all components for MS4 and for the future of our city.
We can do that.
A 36-inch line was proposed to be, for lack of a better term, a phase one of trying to come up with a solution. I know that Mr. Scully has been in numerous meetings with our engineers over this, and we felt that that would be step one. As further properties develop to the east, they're going to also have to do the same thing. And by the way, 36-inch line is a massive line that hauls a lot of water.
So just by default, I'll get my stormwater regional system?
On this site, you will.
Thank you.
If it comes to, I don't know how big my pipeline is in my property. It may only be 12 inches. Who knows? I've been there 45 years, so I have no idea it was there before. When you're talking about this in 2005 and 2006, I was, we were in development stage. I was tied up with the developers. I had kind of a background thing. I had an OID director across from me, and as soon as he heard there was might be development on my property, he went ballistic, and him and two others decided to pull all the water. As you know, that there's no irrigation water going into the city of Riverbank. And that was really sheer spite. The city manager at that time, I think Hallahan, was it Homer, whatever. One of them tried to argue with, tried to deal with OID, which was absolutely impossible. And saying, well, these people can still, don't pull the irrigation water from, let them continue irrigating. Well, they they shut off my water, and a total of 140 acres out there got shut off. And they said, but Riverbank was trying to say, let them irrigate until the land is actually developed. And OID would have nothing to do with that. But at that time it was brought up, that ditch, I think comes down from Langworth along Patterson, and then cuts down, I think along kind of in the back of, before it comes into Eleanor and California. And it was suggested then, and it was turned down, that they could put a put a pond up on Eleanor to hold that water, that excess water, and to be able to reuse it. Or they can run a pipe along Eleanor and dump into their box at the corner. It was kind of at the corner of Eleanor and California. There's a box there, and this excess water could go in there, because between Eleanor and Snedeker, I think, if I'm thinking right, there's probably only 5 people that are dumping in from Eleanor to Snedeker. And if they could stop that easy. You know, I watch my neighbor every time she irrigates, just floods the whole back end of her property, which goes into the ditch, which goes under Snedeker, which I'm waiting for Snedeker to collapse, and then it goes into my pipeline. So there's ways. The only thing is, it's hard, as you know, and I know because I've dealt with them for years, OID is a hard thing. But I figure if they decided they didn't want their irrigation water to go into the city of Riverbank, then what the heck is this water doing? I even asked them at the time, I says, can I dig into that pipe and use that excess water to irrigate my land? They said no. So they've kind of had their own little domain here. So solve it, you know.
We will, and if you want to use it for irrigation,
Pardon?
if you want to use it for irrigation, I'll get that for you. But what I really want to do is stop the flow into that.
That's the main thing. I like I said, I called OID 2 weeks ago because there's a leak, like I said, on Snedeker and along my fence line.
Okay, we'll
I haven't
we'll
seen-
sit down with them and we'll give you feedback.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that staff had slowed this project down considerably, encouraging the applicant and the engineers to find a workable solution that would pass muster with our city engineer and our public works inspector. And they both feel that the solution that they have now has a great likelihood of working.
Thank you. Any other further comment? Thank you. Bring it back to the council for a recommendation.
I make a recommendation that we accept item 5.2.
And that is 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, with all the 3 things too.
I second.
We have a motion to approve item 5.2, items 1, 2, and 3, and a second.
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.3, a resolution authorizing the unilateral implementation of a city's last, best, and final offer on the Riverbank Mid-Management Employees Association.
Thank you, Mayor. Our Chief Negotiator, Liebert Cassidy Whitmore, Attorney Chase Johnson will be giving the report this evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, distinguished members of the City Council. It's nice to meet you in person finally.
I was going to say the same thing.
As the council is aware, the city has been in prolonged negotiations with both groups since March, so for about 10 months now. Those negotiations were good faith negotiations, but were difficult because due to the city's structural deficit and due to issues of prolonged sustainability, the city was looking for some concessionary terms from both bargaining groups regarding their health benefits. We were very close to getting agreements with both groups. We reached tentative agreements with both groups. LEUNA, the general unit, ratified that agreement, and we reached a contract with them, agreement on the health care benefits. Unfortunately, with mid-managers, the membership voted that down. For that reason, under the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, which is the state law which governs negotiations, this city council must be provided an opportunity at this session to discuss the impasse between the parties and therefore thereafter to vote on whether or not the city should unilaterally implement. The resolution which is before you is to approve the last, best, and final offer, or the last offer that we made to the Mid-Managers Association. It is concessionary. There are savings for the city, but it does provide health care benefits to the employees at a very good plan, a platinum plan, both with Sutter and with Kaiser, where the city will still pay 100% of the monthly premiums. There is an increase of out-of-pocket expenses for the employees, but it is still a very good plan. The mid-managers group would still have an opportunity to negotiate, as will the other bargaining group, at the beginning of the next fiscal year, if either group so desires. And of course, I'm sure we will be discussing this issue of the city's contribution towards their health care benefits at that time as well. I had asked the negotiator for the association if he would like to be here today to make a comment to the city council. He indicated that his group did not want to make a comment. I don't know if that opinion has changed or if there's anyone here from the association that wants to speak. Okay. With that being said, are there any questions from the city council?
Questions? Nope.
The recommendation of the staff, of course, is to unilaterally implement the last best and final offer. Without that unilateral implementation, the city would have a very difficult time moving forward with its health care plan for all city employees. So this is necessary to have one plan for all employees here at the city.
Thank you. Open it for public comment. Seeing no public comment, I bring it back to the council for a resolution, a determination.
I make a motion that we accept item 5.3.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve item 5.3, second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.1, a resolution approving appointments of John Diamond, Robert Ball, and Melissa Hughes, alternate, to the Planning Commission effective January 2018.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Pursuant to the policy on Planning Commission terms and filling vacancies, which Council may recall you sort of overhauled a few months ago, 2 seats currently held by Commissioner Scott McRitchie and Commissioner Anthony McKinney are scheduled to expire at the end of this month. An open until filled recruitment was posted, and we received a number of applications. Mayor O'Brien held a number of interviews, I think through almost two afternoons. And he has chosen at this time to nominate John Dinan, Robert Ball, and Melissa Hughes, all of whom's candidate information is located in your packets. They all are very qualified candidates, and so the mayor is recommending their appointment this evening. We will appoint a minor order as we'll actually swear those folks in at the first meeting in January, because the state says you have to wait until the year where they're actually going to seat to do so. But your appointment will be active tonight. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I bring it back to the council for recommendation.
I make a motion we approve item 6.1.
I second that motion.
For a motion to approve item 6.1 and a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.2, a resolution approving the appointments of Benjamin Rubin and Darlene Patrick as primary Budget Advisory Committee members and Wayne Mott as an alternate member effective January 1st, 2018, to serve a 2-year term expiring December 31st, 2019.
Thank you, Mayor. Everything I said in the last report, let's just double that. The Budget Advisory Committee obviously is an ad hoc committee. It doesn't meet as regularly as the Planning Commission. And there were a number of folks that were interested in those seats. The 2 members whose seats are expiring are Evelyn Halpert and Chair Anthony McKinney, who I believe is the chair of that. Vice Chair. In addition, the mayor has proposed that an alternate also be put forth, because in the past, apparently what's happened is sometimes people will fall off or not able to attend anymore, and this will allow somebody to step in that's been attending the meeting and up to date on that. Staff's supportive of that. So as the mayor mentioned, your 3 nominees, and their information is located in your packets, are Mr. Benjamin Rubin, Ms. Darlene Patrick, and Mr. Wayne Mott.
before we move forward, I want to say that we had 12 very qualified, highly motivated individuals for the Planning Commission and for the Budget Advisory, and I truly appreciate their input and their desire to serve. It's difficult to serve, and especially after tonight, some of them may have second thoughts, but I hope they do not. And I truly appreciate all of their qualifications. Some are even more qualified than me. I may pass the gavel. So with that, is there any public comment on item 6.2? Seeing none, I bring it back to the council for a resolution determination.
I move that we accept item 6.2 as stated.
A second?
We have a motion to approve and a second item 6.2.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
and thank you very much. Item 6.3, consider adoption of a resolution approving the execution of Measure L Master Funding Agreement between the Stanislaus Council of Governments and the City of Riverbank. Before we go forward with this is absolutely nonsense. We did not have to do this. They just wasted our time for over a year in discussing this measure that happened in November 2016. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. With that said.
That said, I'll end my presentation.
So Kathleen and I, and obviously the mayor, have been waiting some time for this, and so we've had this document for I think about a month and a half, maybe a month, in draft form. It finally is prepared for council's adoption, despite whether or not you believe it should be adopted. It is the way we will get the money. And Kathleen's going to walk you through the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and I know we've gone through the Measure L, and so I'll be quick with this. Just try to highlight the main points. So tonight, we're asking the City Council to consider adoption of a resolution approving the execution of the Measure L Master Funding Agreement between the Stanislaus Council of Governments and the City of Riverbank. So on November 8th, the voters of Stanislaus County approved a 1/2 cent transportation and use tax known as Measure L. Collection of the sales tax funds began on April 1st of 2017. Currently, all funds collected are being held by the Stanislaus Council of Governments. Measure L projects are outlined in the Stanislaus Council of Governments expenditure plan, and each member agency of StanCog will be required to enter into a Measure L master funding agreement prior to receiving distribution of funds. The Measure L master funding agreement delineates the requirements of the Measure L fund that are allocated to the jurisdictions within Stanislaus County for local streets and roads, traffic management, and bike and pedestrian improvements. The agreement authorizes StanCog to allocate 65% local control funds, broken up 50% local streets and roads, 10% traffic management, and 5% bicycle and pedestrian. The term of this agreement is from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. So the city's responsibilities under this agreement is that all agencies will be responsible to develop an appropriate system of accounts to report on funds received and spent in an annual independent audit of all the city's Measure L accounts, which would be at our expense. All agencies will be responsible for submitting monthly revenue and expenditure reports and annually their capital improvement plan detailing the Measure L projects. If we make any changes to our capital improvement plan, we do need to send an updated plan to them if it includes any Measure L changes. The city must demonstrate an annual maintenance of effort based on the prior 3 years' general fund spending on transportation purposes as reported to the State Controller's Office. So tonight, it's recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the execution of the Measure L Master Funding Agreement between Stanislaus Council of Governments and the City of Riverbank. And do we have any questions?
Thank you, Kathleen. Before I open it up for questions, my concern is with the maintenance of effort. What is the current one for Measure L?
For Measure L, it's significantly lower than it is for SB1. I believe the calculation that we made and that we submitted to StanCog for revision to was about $40,000.
Okay, that's sustainable. And right now for SB1, what is that
For
amount?
SB1, it's significantly higher. The calculation we made was 147,000. The calculation that the state controllers has made is over 260.
So as we move forward, every year we have to do our maintenance of effort. It'll bleed in from SB1 to Measure L, and that we'll be having to pay more for Measure L money as it goes forward for comparably. And the reason why that is significant is that that's general fund money that we had to use in an emergency, that they're now saying we have to keep paying that out of our general fund for streets and roads. So we have to figure out a way to keep that maintenance of effort down, because that was emergency. We usually don't use funding for streets and roads out of our general fund.
No, so what happened during those years, and it just happened, it's an unfortunate year set for SB1 to pick, but what I understand had happened is that the sewer fund at the time was running a deficit, and your collection staff, who are the folks that work streets, and half of their job is sewer collections, which are the pipes that run in the city that transfer the wastewater, were being paid from the general fund because the sewer fund was in a deficit. And that happens a lot in many communities when rates get out of whack. So the argument that our assistant city manager has made to the state, and I think they're in the second level of review still, is that that is not road funding. That's what they're viewing it as, because these staff are partly streets workers and partly collections workers, that we were compensating those folks for their sewer-related responsibilities, and therefore should not be counted as a maintenance of effort towards roadways, because we view them as separate because they are separate. Unclear at this point whether or not that will be accepted by the state, but what we are looking into with StanCog is getting them to understand that that's something we have to live under with SB1, and seeing if that will also be applied. Because I see what the mayor is saying, if you're paying a lot more to maintain that effort in SB1, does that bring your average up under Measure L? And the answer is yes, probably. So we're working with them to see if they will make that determination, at least on a Measure L level.
Is there any way we can show that that was a loan to?
Not without some kind of council action to repay that.
Let's do it. Let's figure it out if we can. Use the guy to your left, and then we can determine whether or not, if we can say it was a loan, that way we reduce the maintenance of effort, so we can pay less out of our general fund for streets and roads.
We'll have to see if they'll accept that, since it has been probably well over 5 years since that action is taken.
Or at least get reimbursed from the sewers. Okay, okay, bring it to the council for any questions before I bring for public comment. Seeing none, I open it for public comment. Seeing no public comment, I bring it back to the council for a recommendation.
I make a recommendation that we accept item 6.4.
I second.
I'm sorry, correction, 6.3. It's moving us right along, sorry.
A motion to approve item 6.3 and a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barber Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
LRA item 6.4, approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to request and execute a supplemental lease agreement number 2 to the U.S. Army lease, wow, this is DACA 05-1-16-516 between the Secretary of the Army and the City of Riverbank to extend the interim lease through March 31st, 2019. And that is Deputy Assistant, no, what does DACA mean?
The Department, DACA, Department of, well, it's an installation and, it's the Army's Installation and Management Office. Sorry.
So with what is going to probably be the most controversial item of the night, Debbie, our LRA director, will be handling this. I saw her hiding in that office.
Good evening, Authority Chair and board members. I apologize, I think this probably could have been on consent. This item before you does concern the expiration of the current lease between the Army and the city for the former Army ammunition plant. The term of the lease is for 2 years, April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2018. And according to the lease, there are 3 one-year consecutive options that could be instigated upon the expiration of the original date. The city has to give written consent 90 days prior to expiration in order to have the Army draft the new one-year lease. And so what this item does is authorizes the city manager to request that extension and then sign that amendment. The second amendment, the first amendment, you'll remember, was what transferred the 24 acres to us earlier in October. And then this lease will extend through March 31st, 2018, and hopefully there'll be no more.
So we're executing as if it started in April, even though we executed it in August, I believe, or July?
Well,
Did we
that was
backdate it?
actually retroactive, so we actually had a
Backdated it.
2-year lease, and one of the years was already over by the time we'd signed that.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Any questions for Debbie? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, and bring it back to the council for a recommendation.
I make a motion that we accept LRA item number 6.4.
I second.
We have a motion to approve LRA item 6.2 in a second.
Authority members Fossey,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 7.1, staff comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment this evening. I've authorized the closing of 2 days during the week in between Christmas and New Year's. So with the holidays that are already prearranged, city's offices will be closed that entire last week of the month, and we'll be back after the first of the year. And Merry Christmas from my staff and the folks that work with us. We've appreciated this year, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Councilmember Fossey?
Got to turn on my microphone. I just want to say it's been an exciting first year on council for me. I appreciate the opportunity to serve the citizens of Riverbank, and I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe holiday and Happy New Year. And please be careful out there on the roads. I'm seeing an awful lot of accidents lately, so pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell?
Just like to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season, and also I really appreciate working with this council.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Again, I'd like to thank the public that was here for their concerns and their comments. And also I want to thank the staff for working so hard on our cannabis regulation and the development agreement for our dispensaries. And then I also want to say just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and ask for your prayers for all of the natural disasters that are going on right now. I mean, it's just all over everywhere. Times are changing. Climate control is happening, so they say. I believe it. So we just need prayers for everybody, and this is not going to be, for some, a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, but prayers will help, I do believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I too appreciate all my council members and guidance of the mayor up here and all the hard work from the city staff that have put hours into all of this. I've had a lot of comments tonight, so I don't think I have any more to add to that. I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. I do need the department inputs before you close down the cities, so I can work on the state of the city. I want to have it completed before the end of January, and I'll know more on that. In that, I've asked Norma to gather some prominent passings for the citizens there in 2017. We've had a considerable amount. And I just want to mention them, not to be inclusive for everyone, but just to mention that these were stalwarts that helped put Riverbank on the path that we're on today. And I also need a list before the end of the year of the transfers, where they're going, who has them, so I can sit down and, because in January, I'll be talking with the Deputy Secretary of the Army, Kramer, and just to update him, and maybe he can prod as much as me. It was a tough decision tonight. Actually, it was a tough conveying where we're going with our decision. But I think I was proud of not only the council, but also the citizens, even though we have a disagreement. And I know some of us will continue to get the phone calls, the emails, and when you're stopped in the street to talk about it more. But I appreciate that. And I appreciate the staff for their diligence in getting us the best information possible to make decisions, especially the legal team of Churchill White and Sean and Donna. Thank you. You put in a lot of effort on that. With that, we move to closed session with item 8.1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision Bravo of Government Code 54956.9, 3 potential cases. At this time, anyone from the public wishing to comment on item 8.1 may do so at this time. Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting to closed session. I didn't mean to cough in your direction. It's allergies.
That's okay.
Report out from closed session, item 9.1. Report from closed session, item 8.1. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 3 potential cases. Direction has been provided to staff. Before we adjourn, our next regular scheduled meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 9th, 2018, at 6 p.m. Merry Christmas to all. We're adjourned.
Okay, now Cindy.
Now you